Hello, everyone. My name is Taylor Tucker. I'm going to share my language learning experiences. So, first off, when I was young, I grew up only speaking English. My family is not Hispanic or Latino. I did grow up around a lot of people who did speak Spanish, um, but I only knew, small words, short phrases, things like that. When I started middle school, I was offered the chance to take Spanish, and I thought, why not? That sounds great. Sounds interesting. I'll give it a try. So I did, and I really loved it. I love learning about a bunch of different cultures. I love learning language and the intricacies of language, and how some languages have similar roots and things like that. So I decided to stick with it. I took it all throughout middle school. I took it throughout high school. I took AP Spanish 4 and 5, which was really helpful because I got to interact with traditional Spanish texts, Spanish poems. I read Don Quixote when I was like 15, which was difficult but very interesting. Um, and I took all the AP tests, passed those, and so when I was deciding, I knew I wanted to be a teacher, but when I was deciding exactly what I would want to teach, one of my high school teachers recommended that I teach Spanish, and so I thought about teaching, Spanish in high school or something like that. But ultimately, I decided that, you know, younger children was more my vibe. It's what I like best, working with younger children. So I was trying to figure out, how I could do this and how that would work, and I'd be able to incorporate Spanish into that. And I was also very nervous because for me, speaking was the thing that I became comfortable with the latest in my learning journey. I knew how to read and write and listen in Spanish much before I felt comfortable actually speaking. And this one teacher in particular who encouraged me to teach Spanish would make us talk in Spanish a lot, as much as she possibly could, which was uncomfortable for a lot of us given that we were, in high school and kind of insecure um, in general, especially like in our language learning abilities. But that really boosted my confidence and made me feel more comfortable with it. So when I was looking at colleges, I saw that UT had a bilingual education program for EC through 6, and I decided that that would be perfect. And that was my first experience learning about um, dual language programs and bilingual education programs. When I was younger, we only had ESL programs that I was aware of, where kids would be in an ESL class. Even in high school, there was an ESL class. Um, but when I found out that dual language was its own thing, that districts were implementing and things, I thought, wow, that's awesome. I want to do that. So um, I went to college. I studied bilingual education and also had a minor in Spanish. So I took a lot of upper division Spanish classes, which helped me in my fluidity of Spanish. I took a linguistics class, which I thought was very interesting, and that's something that I would like to explore more in my career in education if I eventually go on to teach at the college level, which I would like to do. And I took a lot of classes on different literature of different Hispanic and Latino cultures. I took a class that was called Body Politics of Latin American Poetry, and I took a class on Cuban literature and cinema, which was very interesting as well. I took a class on traditional Spanish literature, and I feel like being exposed to all of these texts in Spanish and conversing with my peers in Spanish really helped me to grow my abilities, at least in an educational environment, right? So that my language learning experience has always been in an educational environment, which is good, but it doesn't help you when you're necessarily speaking to people one-on-one, a bunch of different kinds of people. So after that, I got my first job teaching dual language kindergarten, and I absolutely loved it. I will say I think that my speaking abilities increased um, exponentially in my first year of teaching because I was having to teach exclusively in Spanish, um, during Spanish time at least, and the students all spoke Spanish. Most of them understood a little English, but did not speak it. Um, and their parents all spoke Spanish, so I was interacting with people in a more like colloquial way, which was a really good experience for me. And so I've been doing that same thing ever since. This is my 4th year teaching dual language kindergarten. Well, last year I taught ESL, but ESL was different because I was teaching children who spoke languages more from Asia and the Middle East. So they spoke like Arabic, Farsi, Pashto, which was a little more difficult because I couldn't communicate with them or their parents as well. But it was still a great experience nonetheless. And so, yeah, now I'm doing dual language. I love it. I feel like my abilities have just grown so much. The kids help me learn all the time. I feel like I always tell people, like, they teach me, they help me as much as I'm helping them. Um, and as far as my teaching philosophy goes, I really think that learning languages should be simultaneous. Like for me, translanguaging was really useful, and I don't want to use it as a crutch, but if you forget a word or you're like just grasping at something and you just say one word in English or, the other way around, vice versa, you say one word in Spanish, people still understand you. It doesn't impede comprehension for the most part of other people, what they understand. And I think that children learning it or anybody learning it together and making it more mixed and fluid. And I've read research that shows that it literally opens up neural pathways and it makes you essentially smarter. You have more neural pathways that are connected. Um, and I, I just really think that that is the best way to go about teaching it. Um, there are, of course, a million different, studies on it and ways that people think that teaching language is the best, but really, I think it should be more of an individualized approach per student. But in general, I think that combining